UN and the global elite, like the World Economic Forum and the IMF, to get to net zero by 2050. Editor, let's cut to the internet.
Gates has released a new book detailing his plan to get to 0 tons called How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, the Solutions We Have, and the Breakthroughs We Need. His breakdown of how we get to 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases each year puts goods production, as well as generating and transmitting electricity, at the top. The rest is divided among transportation, raising animals, forestry, and temperature control systems. Last year, Gates suggested the US should create a National Institutes of Energy Innovation to help the country take the lead in climate change innovation. But at the same time, he acknowledges that whatever developments come from the US have to be affordable for other countries to actually implement. And the US accounts for 14% of global emissions, so even if it managed to get to 0 carbon emissions, there'd still be a long way to go. In a recent interview with Forbes, Gates says he has put $2 billion of his own money towards companies working towards 0 emissions. Two of the more well-known ones he's backed are Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat, both dealing with plant-based meats. His biggest bet has been on TerraPower, a nuclear power company with a reactor that uses depleted uranium as fuel. The company had been planning on building its first reactor in China, but the deal was blocked by the US government. Now the plan is to build a demonstration plant somewhere stateside, and the company received $80 million to do so from the Department of Energy. The other half will come from the private sector, mostly Gates himself. He's also created a fund called Breakthrough Energy Ventures and has investors such as Jeff Bezos, Vinod Khosla, John Arnold, and John Doerr putting in money towards 0 carbon companies.
So again, notice, they're not talking about increasing the amount of energy we have. They're talking about replacing the existing energy that we have. They're talking about renewables or green energy replacing nuclear, gas, oil, coal, and biofuel. So since they're talking about replacing the existing energy sources and not increasing them, this would imply that if we have continued population growth, that you are going to need to consume less. And this is where we start getting into why the global elite want you to be poor. Step number 2. Now we need to dive deeper into the relationship between energy, the population, and GDP. Maybe more importantly, your standard of living. So the global elite look at the chart that we used in step number 1 and they say to themselves, okay, I get it. We've got the energy usage going parabolic. This grows exponentially. The population doing the exact same thing. And then the population is supported by the additional energy. Therefore, the GDP or the standard of living can increase at the same rate or even a faster rate. But then they look at the types of energy we have and they say to themselves, okay, well, the majority of energy we have now is non-renewable. So this most likely is going to decline into the future. Well, luckily, we have green energy. We're working on that, all the renewable energy, but this isn't going to grow that fast. So in their view, the renewable energy is only going to be able to make up for the decline in the non-renewable energy. This poses a big problem for them. Let's go over to these other lines so we can get our head around exactly what's happening here. Again, the red is population growth, black GDP, blue energy. So if we have this energy going up, or the amount of energy going up, the amount of energy we have access to, and then it starts to flatline because of what we see over here. This means that GDP will also flatline because energy is the economy. But if we continue to have population growth, then this means that the per capita GDP will go down, meaning the standard of living will decrease. So Klaus and all of his buddies at the IMF, the UN, the World Economic Forum, the Davos types like Bill Gates, they look at this and they say, well, I don't want my standard of living to go down. I want to consume just as much energy in the future as I'm consuming today. So let's look at this another way. We've got Klaus right here, obviously. And we've got everyone's favorite, the average Joe, representing all of us, all of you watching this video. So right now, Klaus, let's say, is consuming 1 barrel of oil per year. And let's say the average Joe is also consuming 1 barrel of oil per year. Well, if the population goes up and the amount of energy available does not go up at the same rate or goes sideways, that means that the per capita use of energy is going to have to decline. So in the future, Klaus can only consume maybe a half a barrel of oil. Same thing for the average Joe, because there's the same amount of energy, but there's a lot more people that need the energy or that are using the energy. Well, Klaus and Gates, they don't like this at all. So they say, no, 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 I want to continue to use the 1 barrel of oil per year, if not more. So this means that you, the average Joe, is going to have to consume a lot less. And in my opinion, this is what the global elite's narrative around climate change is all about. They don't care about the temperature in the ocean. They don't care about icebergs. They don't care about polar bears. The only thing they care about is their ability to consume the exact same or more energy in the future. And to do that, if the energy that we have access to flatlines, that means you are going to have to consume a lot less. So the whole net zero by 2050, or else the whole world is going to come to an end, is just a way to manipulate you to voluntarily lower your standard of living. If you lower your standard of living, you become poorer. And this is what the global elite want. I know a lot of you watching this video right now are probably looking at this chart and saying, well, wait a minute. If the population doesn't continue to grow and it flatlines and the energy flatlines at the same time while GDP flatlines and the standard of living isn't going to go down. So if we just reduce the population, problem solved. But don't you worry. The global elite, like Bill Gates, are one step ahead of you. Editor, cut to the clip.
As we make the world healthier, is the population going to get so big that feeding everybody and maintaining the environment is going to be impossible? We go from less than 1 billion in 1800 and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.4 billion where we are today. So Melinda and I wondered whether providing new medicines and keeping children alive, would that create more of a population problem? What we found out is that as health improves, families choose to have less children. So we've taken that chart that shows the global population growth, and we've actually extended it out all the way to 2100. And we can see that instead of continuing, it actually flattens out. Another way to see that is through this rate of population growth. And you can see that in the 60s, that reached a pretty high number, over 2% per year, and it's now come way, way down. Now, 11 billion people, still a lot, but the good news is that the faster we improve health, the faster family size goes down, and so we can feel great about saving those lives.
So we can feel great about saving people's lives. As opposed to what, Bill? Feeling guilty about saving people's lives because it's increasing the population? You see, once you sit down and really listen to what the global elite are saying, their objectives, their worldview becomes crystal clear. Well, let's get back to the video. Bill Gates explicitly says that higher populations are one of the world's biggest problems, and he wants to reduce the population in the future, or the population growth, as he says. But did you catch the part where he was talking about how if we improve health, then we will decrease the population? If you do a quick Google search, you'll realize that the correlation isn't necessarily between health and a lower birth rate. It's actually wealth. The more money people make, the more their standard of living improves, the lower the birth rate goes, meaning the wealthier they get, the fewer kids they have.